foremost, I want to talk a little bit while Denise is passing out some paperwork to you. We did bring copies of the actual presentation, and in addition to that, we do have one of the slides that's really enlarged for you so that you can really take a good long look at it as we're calculating through as the numbers on the screen might be a little bit difficult to see. So we have a couple of reasons why we're here tonight. Certainly, with audit reports that have come out most recently, people have questions about our fund balance, right? In addition to that, people have questions about a number of things that are swiftly coming across Sullivan County, and we want to make sure that we are getting information to you. So it doesn't matter how small the crowd is, all of you have a voice and can certainly go back and talk to some people in order to share the message that we're here to share with you tonight, right? And then, of course, the other reason is to hear you. To hear about what your thoughts are concerning what you'd like the school district to look like, how you would like it to really partner in terms of educating our kids better each and every day. And then, of course, hearing about school safety. Last year, the voters did approve a safety referendum, right, to appropriate some funds to a project to allow for greater safety in our schools. So we are knee-deep in putting that plan together, and so we're coming out to you folks in the different communities to find out a little bit about what school safety is all about. So the first segment will be about district goals and budget management. And the first thing that we want to share with everybody is what we're really all about. Each and every day in the Monticello Central School District, that approved budget supports the education of currently 2,930 students. We have 87 classrooms at the elementary level across the 3 buildings. In the middle school, we offer 292 classes every day. At the high school, it's 435. And in terms of extracurricular programs to keep our kids enriched, we actually have 69 athletic programs and 26 clubs, organizations, and activities that we offer to our kids. But the bottom line is we are one Monticello. Now, I put that on there for a reason, because people always ask, what does one Monticello mean? It could mean a myriad of things. It could mean that I ask my educators to be a bunch of marching automatons across every building, doing everything exactly the same way. Nope. Absolutely not. One Monticello means everybody in every school works together to ensure that we grow better and faster than we ever have before. Now, we all know that there's an art and a science to teaching, right? 2 folks said that, both teachers, right? So the science is, of course, the curriculum. It's known. It should be the same across your 3 elementary schools, so that a child in 2nd grade in any school is going to get the same curriculum offered to them, right? Then you have the art of teaching, and that is where the teacher makes some decisions and decides that you're going to stretch it a little farther because your class is a little further ahead. You're going to pull it back a little. But one Monticello says we give everybody the same science of teaching. So what they are partaking in will lead them to success at the next grade level, regardless of which school building we're in, right? We want them to be prepared for that. So one Monticello, again, is that fight on the same front, regardless of which building we're talking about, to ensure that we're growing our kids to the best of our ability. And the good news is over the course of the past year, we saw some of the strongest growth than we've seen in several years at the Monticello Central School District. For the first time ever, we stopped looking at proficiency alone, and that means are the kids passing the test, and we started looking at how fast are they growing. And that was of great benefit to us in terms of sharing a positive message with our kids about how they can, move forward and do really great things and become better learners every day. So I'm going to turn the question over to you, and I'll give you a moment or 2 to ponder it. The big questions for the night are, what do you want for our children? Because every single child who comes through the system is ours. And what do you want for our future? And I say that because I always think of a real estate pamphlet when I ask these 2 questions, right? People will often choose a school district based on what choose a school district to move into based on what the school district is able to say, right, about the actual program. So what do you want for our children? What do you want for our future? Because the one way to turn around any economy is to educate its population, right? So the more kids that come out of our system educated and ready to roll, the better off we all are. I did put an example up here. Graduation rate of 90% or higher would be something that we might want for our school district on that real estate pamphlet that we put out, right? You want to move to the Monticello Central School District, we are excellent because. So is there anybody out there, and I'm not going to be like the heckler comedian, who if nobody raises their hand, I try to heckle you into it. But I'm curious if any of you have anything that you'd like to offer up of what you'd like to see in terms of success at the Monticello Central School District. Lots. Look at, I saw one of these. What do you got, Kathy?
Well, because many of you know I teach kindergarten, so I'm thinking about, we had this discussion today in school of what's the future going to be for these kids. And when you hear that we're going to have digital money in 15 years, you won't have your bank tellers. You know the post office is not the place to be the next job there. So where are our students who are not the way up here, who are going to be our engineers and all that? What's their future going to be like, and how can we help prepare them to still have our communities, and
Yes.
you know, what is America going to look like in 15, 20 years?
So that's an excellent point. A wise community will absolutely positively design a system that will allow people to move into it, be gainfully employed, and help it grow, right? So some of your kids are going to come through your system, they're going to get jobs, and they're going to move away. But some of your kids will run through your system, and because of the rich experiences that they had within the system, they will actually decide to stay and help grow your community even more. Entrepreneurships, business owners, building a thriving infrastructure here so people want to come, visit, and partake in the goods that they have to offer through the local community. So that's an excellent point. So one thing, just to reframe it very simply, you're looking for innovative programs that produce students who are life ready to help enrich our own community. Excellent. Are there other items? Yes, Dale.
Well, speaking of my grandchildren, of course, I would be concerned will they have confidence to go into school with safety so they can concentrate on their studies.
Absolutely.
And also would be concerned about bullying. I know the their program, we supported the Lions Club in Bethel, and I know it's doing a wonderful job, but with the advent of gambling coming up and enlargement, it's going to take more money. Will there be money set aside for that?
Excellent. So we certainly want a system that is safe and secure, not only through tangible safety, but we also want cultural safety, right? We want our kids to learn how to be kind to one another. We don't want them to be attacking of one another, and in order to do that, we actually need the adults in our system to do that. It's a real whole cultural shift. So we're looking for support of that, and so I appreciate you bringing that forward. That's something that many people have said as I've asked these same two questions. Now, to give you a little background, while some of you are still thinking of another thing you might want to add to our list of things that you might want for our kids and our future, is that I've been through the district asking these two questions to multiple groups over the course of the past year and a half. For those of you who don't know, I was the assistant superintendent previously before I took on this position, and I was asking it of teachers, I was asking it of other folks throughout the system, and asking it to board members as we were working to shape the goals. So we're going to add these right to the list of the things that we want to make sure that we're really focusing on within the district. So does anybody have one last one? Yes.
With the technology taking off in leaps and bounds, and I have no idea where we're going to be 5 years from now, let alone.
Yes.
Do we have the ability in Monticello to keep up with the technology as fast as it's progressing? My grandson is in 5th grade, and they're using the iPads this year.
Lucky.
So we got him an iPad at home. We're fortunate we could do that. I don't know how it progresses as he gets into middle school and high school. I don't know what the future's going to hold for technology.
Right.
Do we have the ability to keep up with the technology? And is there any chance that we can help parents and grandparents understand this technology along the way?
So that's an excellent point.
We're getting lost in it as well.
Framing it back to you, will the district be investing further to expand that one-to-one initiative? And the answer is yes. It started out just as a 5th grade initiative and is spread out. We now have 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, moving into 8th grade. We're talking about moving down into 4th grade. And then I love your idea. It's actually the first time I've heard it, of actually offering those one-to-one classes to the parents so that they could get a chance to learn a little bit more about learning management systems. Now, if you've not heard that term, get used to it. You don't hear it a lot now. You'll hear it often in 2 to 3 years. Learning management systems are platforms where they house learning. So, how many of you are familiar with Facebook? Okay. There's actually a secure site called Schoology that we use in our system. It looks exactly like Facebook. It's totally secure, but we consider it a learning management system. The teachers can load video, they can load content, textbook material, links to web pages. The kids can pull the information off of it. They have conversations from home. That's the thing our 5th and 6th graders are loving most, and now our 7th and 8th graders are loving most, is that learning has become something that they do, and they see it as actually a social media attempt. They're talking about what's going on in Esperanza Rising in the 5th grade, right, over the course of those one-to-one iPads and that learning management system. It really is a great way to teach kids, and we want to expand upon it, but we should be instructing our parents on what those learning management systems can actually do. So we have Parent University, and we will definitely be entertaining that as an idea. So Catherine's got it, and
Let me just follow up on that.
You got
I
it.
remember, but last year you guys did something on the Common Core.
We did.
And I spoke with you, and you helped me to understand some of what was going on. That's why I'm saying that helps.
It does.
It really helps when the parents and the grandparents can get involved in that and understand it.
We will absolutely offer it.
Great.
Other items, before I go to the next slide, we want to make sure that we hear all kinds of input on things that you want for our kids in the future. If you haven't mentioned them yet, you want to tuck it away, you can always bring it up at the end because there is a question time. Okay? The next slide talks about the Board of Education goals. Now, not easy to see, but I want you to know that there is a slide that makes them cut and dry. This is exactly what they look like on the website, and that's why I wanted to show it to you. If you're looking for the document, I thought with some familiarity, you would be able to pull it off very easily and know what I was directing you to. There is a slide that actually lists them in larger letters later on in the presentation so that you can see the cut and dried aspects of what the overall goals are. The 4 goals of the Board of Education are to continue to monitor, evaluate, and assess student improvement. Right? We have that laser-like focus on growth now. We want to make sure that our kids are growing faster than the average. When we launched this school year, the one thing that we wanted to make sure was that we could have an easy marker to find out if we were doing what needed to be done in one statement, and that was be greater than the average. Okay? So you can take the average of everything and anything in terms of what it is that you're doing and make a decision as to whether or not you're falling above the norm of what would be expected in terms of growth. So they want to carefully monitor that student growth, make sure that it improves continuously. Second one, the board will budget strategically to guarantee fiscal strength in the coming years. We are knee-deep in the budget process. We'll talk about that in a couple more slides. But they want to make sure that they're being completely responsible to their taxpayers in everything that they do. Item 3, the board will update, maintain, and enhance school facilities. We do have some things to talk about in terms of capital projects later on in this, and some of the things coming down the pike as a result of that resort being built, so we'll get to that in a minute. And the last one is the board will model and maintain its expectation that all staff and students will exhibit respect, responsibility, and kindness. So that goes part and parcel with your concern over the cultural safety, right? We want to make sure that our folks, doesn't matter who they are, if they're our teachers, our administrators, our students, anybody who belongs to our system, practices that respect, responsibility, and kindness. So the bottom line is when it comes to our attaining our goals, and we want to ask a question about how we actually accomplish that, we do that through the creation of a student-centered culture. Everything that we should do should revolve around what is best for the kids. It is never going to be the easy discussion for adults, right? It's always going to be about What can we do for that child to make them successful? What can we do for our children to make them successful? Our comfort matters less so long as they can actually become successful. Second thing, appropriate staffing. You have to look with a laser-like focus as to how you're staffing to get the job done that you seek to do in those goals. And the last one, making solid program choices. And that's all done through budget management. In terms of that budget management, we do have a budget calendar. It's on the slide that was blown up for you. It's on the back side of it. You have the entire budget calendar there. If you drop all the way to the bottom of the budget calendar, this is just to show you what it looked like up on the screen. But in terms of this budget calendar, we are at the bottom. If you look at the administrative meetings, it guides you through that. We've been doing a lot of back-end legwork concerning the budget up front. If you jump up to the top, when we hit budget involvement by the Board of Education, we actually have a preliminary budget forecast and assumption and tax levy limit discussion on Thursday, February 12th. That's just next week. So I'm not going to go over each of the dates with you, but from nuts to bolts, it starts with my office creating some projections and needs based on the goals set by the Board of Education. It fast forwards to having some discussions and workshops about the board, and then about the board and their role in the budget and the things that they want to get done, and ultimately winds up as the budget that is put forward for approval through the budget adoption by the board, and then ultimately by the voter approval that comes down the pike in May. Okay? In terms of open questions and challenges, two of them are up on the board because they are the biggest hot ticket items. The first one is the casino. The second one is the unappropriated fund balance. How many people in this room have heard about these two items concerning the school this year? Right? Everybody at the beginning of the year after the audit was talking about the unappropriated fund balance. It was in the newspapers, right? There were lots of discussions all around it. And then in terms of the casino, everybody, that has been the chatter all around from a lot of folks as well. So when we're looking at our budget along with those four goals, we also have to keep in the back of our mind these two items in all that we do. Because these are the two things that will really be impactful to the choices that we make over the next 3 to 5 years. And perhaps longer. But hard, right? You said you don't know what's going to happen to technology in 5 years. We can make a best guess of what's going to be happening beyond 5 years, but it's going to shift and change on an annual basis. In terms of the casino, a couple of things that you need to know. Tax revenue and pilot. So if you're not familiar with pilots, you have to understand the whole payment in lieu of taxes, right? Where an organization agrees to actually make a payment in lieu of taxes instead of actually paying the allotted amount that they would give for taxes. So we actually have a figure of the amount of the pilot. Do you have it there, Denise?
The pilot for the casino right now for the Empire Resorts is $334,000 that we receive from them on a yearly basis, and that's out for 20 to 30 years.
Okay, so for 20 to 30 years, in lieu of the amount that they actually would have paid in taxes based on the value of the properties that are going to come forward, instead of making that tax payment, they will pay
approximately $334,000. But keep in mind, that number will change on a yearly basis as the tax rate change.
Okay.
So it'll go up a little bit each year, but it's going to be around that dollar amount.
Okay.
It goes up, right? So if Kauneonga goes up, $100, that will be, they'll get another $100 assessment.
Okay. So very important for you to know. In addition to that, we also have to keep in the back of our mind the population and building use, right? Enrollment projections are something that we're going to have to watch very closely. There are several scenarios that could come into play when you're talking about that casino. Now, being a person originally from Western New York and literally watching the Buffalo Niagara Casino go up 50 miles in one direction from where I was living, right? And then actually watching the Salamanca Casino go up It's along Route 17, all along the base of the state. You've got the casino that went up in Salamanca. It was interesting to watch because different things happen depending on the casino that is built. So we have to be ready for just about anything. But there are 4 scenarios that I think about when I hear about a resort coming into play. And this is not just a casino, which is good news. It is an actual resort with all kinds of things that come along with it. So that makes it a bit more promising. The first item is you could see an immediate enrollment spike. If we have a workforce that comes in that is contracted over a course of time and they are given a place to live here in Sullivan County, namely here in Monticello, where they have their families and children with them, and they are bumped into our schools over the course of the time that it takes to build. This happens often. We will see a general, immediate enrollment spike. We have to be ready for it. Second thing that could happen. The second that the build actually starts, people could actually decide that they're going to move away from the site of a casino. Sometimes happens, right? You've heard of it. They might decide to move. We have to be ready for that. Third thing that can actually happen is we could see no general increase right now, but the second the casino is complete and it's ready for its next level of employment, enrollment spike. We have to be ready for that. And the fourth thing is we could see either a spike or a lull when it's being built, but then once it is finally and ultimately built, you could see folks who actually disperse once the casino is operational, and we have to be ready for that. So 4 different scenarios play out in my mind every single day. It's what actually causes the nail biting, right? Because you have to be very nimble. We have to be very nimble, and we have to be ready for that. In terms of making sure that we get it right, we are actually putting together, and the actual name is not up here right now because when we created the slides and made the print, we hadn't made the actual decision on what we wanted to do with the task force or the committee that we were going to put into place. But an ultimate decision was made this past week to not only just take a look at enrollment and building use across our district, we actually want to take a look at enrollments, programs that we offer kids to ensure that we're becoming a district of distinction, kind of the conversations we had just previous, earlier in the conversation tonight. And we want to also make sure that we are tracking growth in our program. Are our kids, the kids, no matter who is in our system, are they growing in a way that shows us to be greater than the average? Okay? So this task force committee that we're putting together will involve school employees first. It will include Board of Education member, minimum of 1. It will also include an administrator from every building or department, and it will also include a teacher from every building. And what these folks will do will be to partake in several government meetings by their choice. They will volunteer to go, reap information from what's going on in Sullivan County and here in Monticello to bring it back to the team so that we can remain continuously informed and make better decisions. So that is what that committee or team will be doing at the start. It's going to meet monthly at first, but after that it might pick up pace and we may have to become more nimble. If something hits us, we may come together and say, okay, we need to meet again in another month. We need to meet again weekly now as a result of something that we found out at a meeting or something that's headed our way. And it will be used to inform the decisions that the Board of Education and Administration needs to make so that we can remain completely nimble throughout the process. The next thing that we need to talk about, moving away from the actual discussions that we've had regarding the casino, which is one of our hot ticket items, is to move forward and talk about our appropriated versus unappropriated fund balance. So there are 2 types of fund balances that districts can have. The appropriated fund balance is a grouping of monies that is set aside in a specified reserve by the Board of Education through approval. They're used for the purposes stated by the reserve. So capital reserves. right? You're going to do a capital project. They're all listed there on your sheet. Currently, right now, the district has $6,024,000 in their appropriated fund balance for several different purposes. Then you have your unappropriated fund balance, the total fund balance in the general fund in excess of your appropriated fund balance. Okay? So anything that you have above and beyond your actual approved budget is your fund balance, right? And then it's broken into the two categories. If it's not appropriated and it's left over, it becomes your unappropriated fund balance. Our current unappropriated fund balance is 22% of our overall budget. Now, some people were asking questions about how does fund balance grow? So the chart that is blown up on the back that makes it very easy for you to take a look at over the course of the last 3 years explains a little bit about how a fund balance grows. So if you were to look at the 2012-2013 school year, the voters approved a budget of $77 million, and I'm going to do some rounding, folks, so bear with me. The actual numbers are on there. The voters actually approved a $77 million budget. We actually had a revenue. Somebody grab that?
I don't know whose it is.
I thought it was the regular phone.
Yeah, nobody knew. Regular phone?
Who has a phone?
Oh, yeah.
Is the meeting still on?
Yes, come on over. We love visitors. All right. So the approved budget that year was $77 million. Our actual revenues that we took in were $75 million, rounding up, right? Closer to 75. Now, the actual expenditures that we made were $74 million, rounding down. So, oh, go right ahead. So Denise, talk to me a little bit about revenue sources so the folks will understand what revenue sources we take in as a school district.
So we have many revenue sources. The main sources are your tax levy and your state aid. Everything else is broken down into miscellaneous revenue. For example, we have rentals, the town of Bethel rents Duggan. We have St. John Street that is still rented from BOCES. We have interest income, just like as you, in your personal lives, you have your checking account, savings account, you earn interest, so does the school district. And then we receive other monies as health services from other districts. We do have some schools in the district that we receive money from other districts. So we have, those are the miscellaneous revenues that come in.
Okay. So we have all these revenue sources, and then you've got your expenditures, what you actually pay out. And if you notice, for this year, the surplus that actually grew that year was $614,000. See the total there? Now, you might think, oh, that's pretty good, right? Seems pretty spot on. The thing that you're not seeing there is that the district, the Board of Education, had actually hoped to run in a deficit that year. They knew they had a bit of a fund balance. They wanted to offset the tax levy, so taxes would stay down, okay? And so they budgeted appropriately for that by doing something like appropriating $5.5 million of their fund balance in case they ran in a deficit. You all understanding that? Okay. But then something happened. We received a BOCES refund check from the prior year. See it on there? Now, what happened there was, that goes into our revenues. Do you see if you had deducted that amount from your revenues, that you would have actually run in a deficit and you would have started chewing away at that fund balance? Okay. Got that part? Let's jump to the next year. Okay. 2013-14. Approved budget of $80 million. And I'm going to do rounding again, but the figures again are there in front of you. You've got your revenues of $77 million. You've got your expenditures of almost $74 million. You've got that surplus deficit, the surplus there, sorry, I just read it right off the paper, of $3.5 million. Now, there was a hope and intent this year as well to run in a deficit. Again, we received that BOCES refund check. Now, what you should be saying there is, okay, so you wanted to run in a deficit and you were off by about $1 million. That's going to happen. That's going to happen when you make an attempt to become fiscally responsible, to do what you need to do to shore up costs that are going out. So in that year, We actually had taken a good, strong look. We had the several positions that we reduced down, doing some right sizing within the district to make sure that we weren't overstaffed. And as a result of that, we actually wound up with the $2.5 million as a result of the fact that, again, we ran as a result of that BOCES refund being added to the revenues. Now jump into this school year. This school year's approved budget is $83 million. Currently, we've gotten just about all of our revenues, right, Denise?
We already just about accounted for.
Okay, we have $80 million that came in. Our expenditures are currently, and this, by the way, includes payroll all the way to the end of the year, $76 million. If we were to do nothing different and expend no more money, and of course we will, right? We will be expending some money beyond payroll. We would actually have a surplus of $3.6 million. But again, look at the BOCES refund we received 2 months ago. That is what is feeding that. So for 3 years, your Board of Education has put a budget together that asked us to have us operating in a bit of a deficit to chew away a little bit at that fund balance. But as a result of the BOCES refunds continuously coming in, it actually wound up offsetting and leading to some growth in your fund balance, right? There are other things that fed into it as well, of course, but you want to pay careful attention to a couple of things on the sheet. Number one, what are we doing about the BOCES refund? Tightening up our numbers as we speak. Before we go to the Board of Education this year with our staffing costs, we have actually taken that it's called an initial services request. Before we make a decision on what we're going to buy from BOCES next year, we made it a super long process where we're actually reviewing several years of information to figure out why the refund check that we were getting was so high, to ensure that we're budgeting appropriately by that. So if the decision is made again to offset the tax levy with an appropriation from the fund balance, that we actually do run in a deficit. Okay? I say that to you now because no decisions have been made about the budget. It's the Board of Education's job through the workshops and the information that we present to them to make that decision. So I'm not here tonight to make any promises. But if we were going to chew away at that fund balance, we would know that next year we're not going to have that same BOCES problem that we've had repeatedly that would lead to the fund balance growing even more. Okay? Now, the unappropriated fund balance is actually good news for us. Why is it good news? It is good news because we have a resort coming. We have all kinds of housing being built throughout the Monticello School District. One in particular, I don't actually have the name of the development that's going up right across from Walmart, up behind McDonald's. But we have some housing developments opening up there for workforce that may actually wind up with a ton of children. I think 174 units. Yep. Shifted its focus.
It was going to be mostly seniors, as you know, and now they have recruited senior housing, now scaled back some of the senior housing so that they may be entertaining potential families,
Workforce development, 174 units. Yeah. So if those houses fill up and we have to say, make a decision that our enrollments have spiked and we need to reopen a school, make sure that we're better using our facilities currently, complete a building project, we will be perched to be ready. So this slide is the actual potential uses, right, of why it's advantageous for us to have that fund balance at this very moment in time, okay? So the first one is, of course, that capital reserve. It's always a great idea when you have an unappropriated fund balance to make sure that you're moving some of those funds by voter approval into a capital reserve to ensure that we get the job done in terms of going back to that board goal where we said we wanted to make sure that we enhanced our facilities, but also making sure that we're making use of the facilities that we currently have based on our needs. We may find that we have to think at a moment's notice and find a way to reopen Duggan. make better use of some spaces in our middle school, high school. Maybe classrooms as they're currently set up will have to be redivided and reused. Okay, we saw it happen out at Chase, right? Where they were taking actual classrooms and the actual cafeteria, splitting it into two and creating 2 classrooms. So you have to keep all of that in mind as you're seeking to make decisions in terms of that nimbleness. We have to be right on top of it and ready for it, and that fund balance actually helps us do that. In terms of that, you need to know there's not been an actual major capital project since 2000 in the school district. That's a long time, folks. Okay? So if you want to actually maintain and enhance your facilities to be that district of distinction, you have to invest in it. And now may be the time with that unfunded, unappropriated fund balance. The next bullet, the last bullet down below, is to continually offset the overall budget. It's something that we've regularly been doing in the anticipation that we would operate in a deficit in order to eat away at some of those tax monies that we've already taken in. And that is a good thing to do, offsetting the tax levy. So it puts you in a good spot. A number of districts, as you know, have found themselves in a really bad spot these days. Many are making the decision that they are no longer going to continue programs at all. They are going to cut, they are going to reduce, they're eliminating things that were important to their culture as a result of the GEA, as a result of the burdens that they have with the tax cap. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are being really critical of how we spend those dollars in order to ensure that we can keep our programs that make us a district of distinction. So when people are making the decision as to whether or not they're going to move here, there is no decision for them to make. It is, we are going to move to Monticello, and this is what they have to offer. In terms of those key focus points, bringing you back to those 4 goals of the Board of Education. Think now over the course of our conversation of what we've been talking about in terms of what do we have in fund balance? What are we going to be doing over the course of this budget season? What decisions do we have coming down the pike in the next 3 to 5 years? And then think even more clearly based on what the board has said they're going to focus on in terms of the budget that they're going to ask you to come out and vote for in just a couple short months. I know May seems far away when it's going to be -15 tonight. But we need to make sure that our students are improving each and every day, that we can support those programs with technology that make a difference in helping our kids become better learners through their eyes. Using the one-to-one initiative, using the learning management system, we have to be able to invest in those. Strategically guaranteeing fiscal strength in the coming years, making use of that unappropriated fund balance in really solid and positive ways. Updating, maintaining, and enhancing the school facilities. Folks, when you don't have a capital project since 2000, you have to do something to make a decision about enhancing what you currently have to offer students who come into your district. And fourth and finally, making sure that everybody invests in being respectful, carrying the responsibility of what needs to be done, and that they're being kind to one another while they're doing it. And you do that through cultural overhauls. You do that through investing in programs that help the kids understand the anti-bullying programs that have been brought in the past, and the actual way that we actually instruct children. You know, we always take a look at what takes kids off task. It's the difference between being engaged and being not engaged. A child who is engaged is far more likely to not be a discipline problem, to not be making a bad choice. So we need to make sure that we're investing in that so that they feel comfortable in their own classrooms and feel like they want to be a learner. So with that in mind, back to the goals. I ask you, before I open the floor to any questions, what is it that you want for our children and what is it that you want for our future? And so with that, I'll bring it back to you and say, questions from the floor. Yes?
the Duggan School, I do believe one day it will be reopened. I do believe we'll have growth again in our community. And I think maybe the task force could consider some of the unappropriated funds to, it's hard to spend money on a building that's vacant, but I think it's going to need it. A roof, it just needs maybe some basic maintenance because it is an asset to the
Yes.
school district and especially to our community, but I think some basic upkeep would be something to consider.
I think you're absolutely right. Something that we're doing this next year is the building condition survey. It has to occur every 5 years. It's rolling down the pike, and one of the key things that we asked them to take a look at was the Duggan building. The Board of Education, they're nodding their heads now, our two folks who are here are going, yep, we said you have to absolutely focus on that.
That's great. I'm really happy to hear that, and I know we have lost a lot of people, but I think if that school does if the school district does consider opening again,
Yes.
I think we will see people actually move here just to go to that school.
Correct.
And I do believe, and the school district is looking at Monticello, I think is going to be the biggest impact with the casinos. But I think other school districts too, I don't know if they're looking at the impact because they will be impacted also to some degree. Because there are going to be different levels of housing needs for the different levels of people that will be working there. And
most people are willing to commute between 45 minutes and an hour when they live out in this area.
Right.
And so the stretch is wide of where people might decide to live. But it's friendliest if we can invite them into the corners of our communities, convince them through that, think of that real estate pamphlet that I talked to you about before, convince them that we're doing it better than anybody else. Say that again.
It's because we're doing it better, not just because we have to convince them, but start doing it better.
Start doing it better. Absolutely. Good point. So we are doing that. The building condition survey is going to address any needs that Duggan might have, and we also asked them to take a particular look of what would need to be done if we were to turn it back into an educational building. So we actually just moved forward in getting that building condition survey up and running last week. So those things will be coming down the pike to answer those questions.
that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
We'll go middle, back, front. We'll go in a circle.
It's fine, it just.
Me first?
Yes.
Okay. Since I am on the town board in Bethel, my first is for Bethel and for the Duggan School, and we've always held out hope. And I do agree with Rita that I do think one day it will open again. I think that we will grow, and I think it will open again.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to first thank you guys for letting us use that school, because it's been a wonderful thing for our town and our kids that live out here to use that. And sometimes it's hard for our kids to meet, to go to the Monticello functions.
Mhm.
It's a long travel for them to do that. So to have our youth center and to have the ability to use that has been a great asset. And I know that there are people who moved to Bethel originally for that school. And I would like to say that for Bethel, we welcome that opening again, because we look forward to people coming back to Bethel, families coming back to Bethel. We miss our PTA, we miss our certain things out here. But we have all adjusted, and we really thank you guys for what we're doing and leasing that school. And we hope to be able to continue that relationship with Monticello for as long as we can without ever standing in the way of the Duggan School reopening.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Al?
Well, I want to echo Vicky's remarks and also first Vicky, as far as the school being motivational for people. I moved here as a summer resident in 1976, and that was our plan, to be summer residents. And one day we took a walk to the school. And I traveled back and forth from Brooklyn for 18 years because I wanted my children to go to that school. As Rita is saying, she feels, and so I feel the same way. But I feel the reasons are, and that we're talking about during the 4 scenarios. It's going to change things while they're building, after completion, who's leaving, who's not. The deserters. If they had a school, so it's a Duggan, within 15, 20 miles, but away from where they're running away from, because of the obvious reasons, then they may encourage them to move out here, those with moderate incomes. Secondly, people who are buying homes, and I can tell you for a fact, the call I just got was from one of the homeowners here. There's more activity in the White Lake homes over the last 3-4 months of people looking to rent, people looking to buy. It's the first time we can open the doors up for a long time to show houses to people that have been for sale for a long time. And I think that's because of the casinos coming in. And most importantly, and you said it before, the 174 homes being built behind the grounds, it was changed because there was some tree stages, there was little senior vets. Now it's the children are welcome with their families, and perhaps they will have to travel to Dublin to go to school.
Very interesting.
My daughter just, side note, my daughter just told me, I told her where I was going, and I have 3 grandchildren now, and one is almost nearing kindergarten, actually.
Lord.
It's so going so fast. But she said she would move back, she said she would move back to Bethel if the Duggan school opened. And when she said that, I was like, really? And she was, oh yeah. I was like, because she's a graduate, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Okay. I said, well, I'm going to root for the home team.
Kathleen.
Normally, we're asked to, because we've had plenty of Tammy's ear to ask questions, but I'm just here speaking as a citizen, and so I will, Alice, if that's okay. You don't want, well,
You are here as a citizen. We don't have
well,
quorum.
no, because we try to keep it the public to get your, because we have.
Yes,
session all the
absolutely.
time. But it's funny too, Rita, that you say that, because my nephew also they're starting a family as well. And they echoed that sentiment as well. And my nephew had moved out in 2nd grade, and he was also. So it's funny how people still have that attachment to, not that it's better or anything, it's just an attachment that we have for whatever
Excellent.
reason. So I'd like to just echo that sentiment. Just for clarification though, with the, and I'm not sure if you had expressed it, we are doing a more intense building
Absolutely.
study survey than in the past, than just the nuts and bolts of what normally
Correct.
is required. I just wanted to
So it's
say that we
actually,
do that.
we're going to talk a little bit about it at the board meeting coming up.
Right.
In terms of what it might actually look like. Because we specifically designed it to be extremely in-depth, focusing on the items that we wanted them to focus on. They certainly have to go into every nook and cranny, right? As part of a building condition survey, they go into every nook and cranny of your district to let you know what your needs are. But they will do focus points. And so it will be very specific to the things that we've tailored out that we need. And taking a look at the Duggan School is definitely one of them.
And just as a side point, this building condition survey is submitted to the state education department when it's finalized. By law, we have to do that.
Absolutely.
So that they're aware of, so if we come forward with a capital project, and they'll go through that and see where it is in the
If there's something that
priorities.
you actually need to do.
So this
they'll have
helps
it
us
on hand.
prioritize what the district needs to do to keep the buildings, to enhance our buildings.
But we can tell them what we want to prioritize as well. So to put that at the front. All right. Any other items before we shift to safety?
I'm gonna throw my youth director hat. I'm the town and Bethel youth director. Just like what Kathleen and Rita were saying, that this area of Bethel is very connected to their home school, and all their children are saying they'll all come back, send their kids back to that school. And I had this conversation with you that our population in Bethel that attended Duggan 5 years ago, the last year was open, to how many are actually going to the relative school, and that's decreased by half, 50% of, because I'm a teacher in the district.
Right.
And we always had kids who went to the homestead school, we always had kids who went to St. Peter's or somewhere else, but the kids that are being homeschooled increased for the people who had a second family. Like they already sent one group there, they got remarried, and now little kids, they're homeschooling them, a couple of families. And then Bethel has a lot of rentals, like Al was saying, like homes, smaller, there's a lot of rentals, so a lot of people left. And I think, like they were saying, come back, because we do have a lot of rentals that families can move it back to housing rentals, not apartments or
Well, thank you for sharing that. Alice, final thought.
I just wanted to say that I maybe read the article in the paper in Times Herald Record addressing the backlog. of state education reviewing capital projects. If we are in a position where we have a capital project and we can demonstrate immediate and urgent growth, we will be bumped up that ladder by SED. We will not be put in that pipeline. You can expand upon it.
Right, because when we do see a surge of growth, that becomes an issue with the state education department, and we can go ahead and petition for them, for facility planning, to go ahead and look at our project to get the approval quicker than, waiting out 18 months. Because that's what the wait time usually is on this stuff. So we will have a little bit of leeway if we need to. But also, and I do want to just say that, putting up the capital reserve to the voters in May, that will also help, because depending on what needs to be done, for example, if Duggan needs to be opened up, if we have enough money reserved, if the voters approve it as we write it, that, if it's just, just throw numbers, say it's, costs us $2 million to open it, we reserve that money, the voters go ahead and reapprove it, we would be able to pull that money back out of the reserve and not have to worry about bonding the monies. So that will help the district out also, and the taxpayers.
Help it happen more quickly.
And happen quickly.
Okay.
Can I just, one more thing?
Sure.
Just a thought, because Duggan School isn't going to open, immediately.
Of course not.
I wish it could, but it's not going to open immediately. And just a thought as a grandparent who's watched my grandson and gotten papers home saying there's going to be this night at Rutherford School, there's going to be this night at Rutherford School, and all the different things that go on, and talking to other parents from out here. It's very hard sometimes for the kids out here to make those things. And if there was any way that something could happen at the Duggan School, in the spaces where we have them out here, for the Bethel parents,
Yep.
so that they could have something a little closer to home once in a while, would be really helpful.
Makes perfect sense. We got it. Fantastic idea.
The high school science teachers, I don't know what it was called, but they did have an event out here, not last year, the year before. It was like they had Star Lab and Christine Margaret.
But I'm talking about just, the bingo nights and just the little things.
The PTO group to travel.
Yeah.
It was nice for the district teachers, I don't know what it was, that offered something out here in the gym. And that was nice to have different people come out to that too.
Excellent. All right, so now we're going to shift our conversation over the